welcome to episode 66, where today we're going to talk about Shure SM7B microphones having to be used with a preamp, typically a Cloudlifter. If you read internet forums, you'll see this subject winds people up like mad, and equally it worries loads of people who are either about to buy an SM7B or have already got one and are concerned that they're doing it wrong. Without a doubt, the Shure SM7B is a low output microphone. Now, does that automatically mean that you must use a preamp? Well, not necessarily so. There's a couple of things to think about. It's a low output microphone, so if you use it like I do at a distance, so I mean this particular SM7B that I use here as a comparison, sits quite a way away. I mean, if I put my arm out, I can just about touch the front of the microphone. So it's a fair distance from my mouth, and I always use it at that distance because personally I don't like seeing microphones in shot. Now, at that sort of distance, frankly, you do need a preamp of some sort. I actually don't use a Cloudlifter. I use these little devices. FET Pre's, it's the FP1. It's just same sort of thing as a Cloudlifter, and I've got 2 or 3 of these. They're great for getting any low output microphone up a bit if you really need a bit of extra gain. I've got a few microphones that from time to time I use for things that perhaps they weren't designed for, and these things do just give you a bit more clean level. The preamps in most of my interfaces that I've got are really not ultra low noise quiet devices once you crank the gain up a bit. So if you go above 70-75% on the gain control, quite a lot of them start to produce a lot of noise. At lower levels they're absolutely fine, so this thing solves the problem. And there's one of these sitting between the SM7B here and the camera that I'm talking into here. My audio path goes from this mic through the preamp into that camera there. Once it's inside the camera, normally it disappears down an SDI cable and appears at some other gear, and it's recorded as an embedded audio from a Blackmagic recorder, which is what today I'm not using. I'm actually recording the audio from this microphone direct onto the camera card, and I'm not using the Blackmagic recorder that I normally use, the Hyperdeck, at all today. Now, what I will need to do for this video is periodically shut up. Probably a lot of people would wish I did it more often, but there we go. The reason being, the Blackmagic device is sitting on the bench here, and it's got a fan inside, and frankly it's quite noisy. I mean, the only thing about it I really don't like is the fact that it makes noise, and that noise is on most of these recordings that I do, and I figure that that's perfectly okay. I know that for those folks listening on excellent systems who've perhaps got headphones on, you can hear it whirring in the background, but unless we're actually recording and need silence, that's the way I'm doing it. So what I'm going to do now is shut up, give you a bit of clean silence, and see if you can hear this Blackmagic Hyperdeck sitting just at the side of where the SM7B is. Remember, it's a cardioid, it's pointing at me, but it's also got some pickup towards the sides. So can you hear the fan? And when I cut the power, see if you can detect a change to the audio. Right. Now, in here now, I can hear a very gentle hum that's coming from a transformer somewhere, and I can also hear a few noises in the background from It's a very windy day, so I don't know if you can actually hear that recorded via this SM7B. I'll just shut up again. Okay, let's call that part done. Now what I've done is I've brought out an identical SM7B. I brought it from my other studio in this morning because the only other one I had here turned out to be the counterfeit one we used a while back. So I brought the SM7B that I use from the other studio here this morning, and I've connected it direct to the wide angle camera. The SM7B is plugged into this camera with its normal XLR cable, and I'm going to do what I don't normally and rig up the SM7B in my face. So what we've now got is the SM7B cabled direct to the identical camera here, and we're using the audio that's built into that. So that's not a sophisticated, wonderful preamp. It's just a preamp designed for video cameras. It actually is pretty sort of transparent in terms of tonal quality, but it's not excellent. Okay, so you're listening to me now on an SM7B that's close to my mouth, and it's feeding that camera direct, and no preamp, nothing to worry about, and I'm talking in my normal voice, and I'm that sort of distance from the mic, aren't I? So does that work for you? Let's try it even closer. There's plenty of people who would actually use a microphone touching their lips. I mean, my lips now are a fraction of an inch away from the grill on the front of this microphone. So you're now hearing the SM7B with no preamp straight into that camera, and it's working okay. What you're listening to now is the SM7B millimeters away from my lips. Now what I'll do is I'll be quiet and let you listen to the noise in the background. In actual fact, I've left the door open down there and it's blowing a gale, and there is what sounds like rain hitting a window. I can hear that. See if you can. No, I think too far away. So that's the SM7B without its preamp. So what I'll do now is disconnect it and replace it with this in line. Okay, so now we've got the SM7B with an inline preamp and same distance. My mouth is almost touching this. So what do you think? I'll be quiet. So what have we got? We've got the SM7B going into an inline preamp, going straight into the mic input of the camera that's over there, and that's what you're hearing at the moment. Let's just do a swap. We'll just quickly swap over to the SM7B that's at the usual distance I use. So we're on the SM7B that's a bit further away. So there's plainly differences in the sound of my voice. I just happen to like the more distant one. That's just me. Lots of people on the net, I'm sure everybody's spotted, want to have an SM7B in shot very close to their mouth. That's fine, totally fine. I just think they're probably one of the really ugliest microphones I've ever come across. So it's just something that I don't do because I don't like the look of it. I'd much prefer the cleaner look that you get when you have the microphone further away. But that microphone definitely needs the preamp because it's just too far away. A low output microphone with a fairly average preamp that's inside that camera means that that preamp is pretty essential. If we're talking about a microphone here, let's cut back to this one. Well, this one with the preamp, do we actually need that preamp? Look, Let's take it out of circuit again. Hold on. So that's this microphone without the preamp. It's in my hand here. So this microphone without the preamp. I'm not convinced that for every circumstance these things are really needed. I mean, I really don't think they are. For some things, like my problem with this distance, because obviously if you double the distance, you take the volume down to a quarter of what it was. So if you are going to use a microphone a bit further away, that's pretty important to get that level thing sorted out, because you don't want to take the level down if you can sort of avoid it. I mean, these things do get it back up again, but should you really be using one? Well, I think probably if you buy an SM7B and you don't have a preamp, it's going to limit you. I mean, I bought the first one of these. I got it from Studio Spares in the UK. I quite like them. They've got a nice range of slightly alternative products. But something like this is a real get you out of trouble. I mean, it lives in the circuit of the other one. I never disconnect it. It's always there. And I think it works. How about if we move to a mid distance and see if we can recover it? If I move this microphone to the same distance as that one, what will happen then? Okay, so we've now taken the SM7B to exactly the same distance as the one I normally use. So if we go to my SM7B, which is the one into the camera with the preamp, so that's what we're listening to now. So that's the SM7B with the preamp. Let's cut to the one that doesn't have the preamp. So we're now on the one with no preamp. All I've done in terms of processing is I've normalized everything to get the maximum level to be exactly the same. So what should be happening is that the output level remains constant, but you should be able to detect the background noise going up and down. So let's run through these again and let you check the background level. So here we go. SM7B, no preamp, and I'll stop speaking. Switching to the SM7B with the preamp. What do you reckon to the change in the noise floor? You've got to decide whether that is okay or not. If you can live with it, super. I mean, bear in mind that I'm pretty awful at these sort of things, and I've been giving you for weeks background noise in the recordings. One person commented and they said they could hear a fan in the background. Now, for most people, noise is not as problematic as we think. If we're going to go to recording, well, then obviously we want to maximise the signal to the noise. So signal to noise ratio is really important. I'm just not convinced that we really listen before we give the advice. I think having one of these available is useful. Is it essential? Well, for most people, if we can have a reasonable noise performance with an SM7B close in without using it, which we do seem to be able to do, well, you know, it's extra money, isn't it? Do you want to do that or don't you? This FET Pre, it's not a majorly expensive piece of kit to have as a get you out of sort of trouble gizmo, but I just worry that people always say if you buy an SM7B you must have an inline preamp. Well, you don't have to have one. For certain circumstances, like me, it's probably a really good idea because I work at a distance and I've got a low output mic at a distance. The two things add up together and they conspire against you. If you're going to use it in your face, and certainly if you're going to sing into one, so if you're going to belt into an SM7B, you don't really need that preamp like many people will tell you you do. What are we arguing about? Just the cost of the preamp? I don't know. This is another one that's up to you. If what you've heard says to you, yep, I need a preamp, at least you'll know the differences you can get. I'm not sure everybody will feel the same way, but at least now you've heard the difference of with and without, at a distance and close to. Anyway, that's the one for today. Talk to you again. See you on the next video and look after yourselves. Take care.